This is a video for how to go about constraining your Trammel toy slide block pieces to your existing Trammel toy base and corner pieces in Fusion 360. In a previous video, we've created the Trammel toy base. We have used rigid constraints to place our corner pieces, and we have also gone in and placed our bolts, hex nuts, and dowel rods. In this video, we're going to be placing our slide blocks. So I'm going to grab a hold of a slide block and drag it out. And remember, I've said before that we're trying to mimic what physical construction would look like. Now, I've placed this piece in here. One of the important things we have to double check before we start placing and rotating is, this one has that 90-degree angle to it right in here that I talked about. We placed our corner pieces. Now, these corner pieces over here, this has this kind of, arced curvature shape. We want to make sure that we're rotating so this is going to fit down through the slide area that has this 90-degree angle. So I'm going to come up to my house button, and I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to rotate this around 90 degrees, because what's going to happen is this would go into this area and kind of through here. And we're going to say OK, and I'm going to go to my house button, and I'm going to kind of drag this in here. And what we need to do is use a slider constraint, and a slider constraint is going to allow this black piece to slide through this cavity area right through here to another side. Now, what's tricky about using a slider constraint is deciding where we're going to start the origin from, and that can be kind of tough sometimes, but on these pieces we have these horizontal lines that are going to give us a guide. So we're going to go to joint, and we're going to go to motion, and we're going to go to slider. And I'm going to go back to position. And the position that I'm going to use is, remember, we always pick the piece that's going to move first. And the black piece over here is going to move first. We have these diagonal lines that will kind of give us an idea, but what Fusion is asking us for is that, where are we going to have these points meet? And the point I want you to use for your slider block here is right along here, and make sure you have this circle in the same position that I do, to where you have a line that's going right along here. This circle needs to be in the same position. I'm going to come up and grab a hold of my view cube, and I'm going to rotate around. And what we're saying is, that corner we just chose would slide right along this corner. And I'm going to choose this little point right here. Now, there's different places you could choose to make this work all the same, but just for the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about how we would just go about understanding the concepts of the slider constraint. Now, I haven't said OK yet, because when I come over here to the side, you can see there's this pretty big gap over here, but over here this is rubbing right up against the side of that, gold piece, and I don't want it to just rub up against the side. That would cause friction. Now, if I grab a hold of my arrow here and I go to the left, I can see that along the y-axis I've moved a distance of 1. I don't want to move a whole distance of 1 because this is way too big of a gap. I'm going to highlight in my y offset, and I'm going to say, 0.25, and I want to see what that looks like. If that gives us a decent gap, we can always move in here. This looks a little too much. I'm going to take the 5 off, and I'm going to go 0.2, and we can kind of eyeball this a little bit. Maybe I'm going to go back and take away that 2 and go 0.15. I'm going to keep this here just like that. 0.15 seems to give me a pretty decent gap on each side. We don't want to create friction. Remember, friction is the resistance to motion between two objects. We don't want the part to wear out, cause unnecessary wear or heat or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and say OK. And you'll notice now I have the piece constrained. It's kind of good to go to your top view here. And this is why the different views exist. I can click and hold down and drag this along. I can't go through the object. Look at me go up and down. This is sliding right through here. Again, physically. You should have your physical automata box, let's say, at your desk, and you should note that you can kind of drag yours through physically like this. Now, what's neat about Fusion is over here we have all of these joints that we've done. So if this is collapsed for you, you can open it back up, and we can see every rigid constraint we've done. And this is our slider over here. And the Trammel toy slider we have here is the 90-degree slider. We can call it that if we want to, because we have this 90-degree angle. So I'm going to tap on slider 23, and I'm going to tap on it again. You might have a different number, and I'm going to call this 90 degree slide block, and I'm going to hit enter. And it kind of gives us a good name. I don't need to know all these revolute constraints, but you can see, we put a revolute constraint even for, for this dowel pin right here. If I wanted to go through and name every one of these joints, it would make it a lot easier for me to, itemize exactly which one each one is. The next one we'll call it a 90-degree arched slide block, or we'll call it the arched slide block or something like that. Now, on my 90-degree slide block, I want to right-click on this, and we're going to go to Edit Joint Limits. And I'm going to go to top up here at the top, and I'm going to look straight down on the object. And I want to click on minimum, and I want to click on maximum. And sometimes you can just kind of mess around with this however you choose. You know, and I'm going to say the minimum in this case. For me, I know going this way is going to be negative. To the left is going to be negative. I'm going to go negative 90. And, you know, for maximum down here, I'm going to put in, I don't know, like 30, something like that. I'm going to say stop for I'm going to click animate down here and watch it move. And what that's saying is that you can create these imaginary walls that it hits. You could call these planes if you want to. You know, it's imaginary of where it's going to go, and you can say never go past this and never go past this side. If we wanted to, we would say, you know, it's never going to go outside of this box, and it's never going to go outside of, you know, this edge over here. You know, and you could be right with that. You can mess with this however you wish. Once we start actually getting into the more rotational aspects of this, we might wish to have a little bit more of, let's say, a liberal, you know, distance. So I'm going to put in, you know, negative 120, and for maximum I'm going to put in 50 and just watch how it changes. I mean, it goes way outside there. Now, it would never go that far outside, otherwise it wouldn't be working, so this would be a little bit ridiculous. So let's come back in, and I'm going to go negative 100. It goes out, that's too far. 50 is too far. I'm going to put in 30 here. One of the things I like to do in these videos is kind of give you an idea of how you can go in and set the limits as you wish. And I'm going to leave this in place, and I'm going to say okay. And then we have another slide block to place. I got my 90-degree slide block. I'm going to find the other one that has more of an arch, and I'm going to drag it out. I'm going to place it. Give it a second to place. Now it looks to me, if I go to the word front here, I'm not going to have to move too much because I have my arches over here, and there's that arch right there. So I'm going to click my house button. I'm going to click and hold down and drag this over to here. And I'm going to say OK. And we're going to do the exact same concepts. Again, if you wanted to choose a different point along the line, you could. But for the sake of keeping things consistent, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to go up to Joint, go to Motion, make sure I have Slider, I'm going to go to Position. And we're going to choose our black line first. Now, I'm just choosing a point along an axis, and I'm choosing this midpoint as my point along my axis. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to rotate my view cube just a little bit. Just a little bit. Went a little too far. Go ahead, just try to make sure I can see in there. No different than if you were trying to rotate a physical object and see it. I'm going to click. And we now have that rotating. Now, once again, before I say OK, I want to make sure there's not any undue friction over here. You know, if I drag left or right, it gives me an idea of how far I'm going to go. And that's, you know, just 1 millimeter. And I think last time we went negative 0.15 millimeters, something like that. This is something that you can eyeball, negative 0.15. And I can see I have a gap over here. I have a gap on the other side. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now, I talked before about how, you know, we have a 90-degree slide block on that side. Over here, I'm going to call this, I'm going to tap once, tap again, and I'm going to call this, you know, arched slide block. You can call it whatever you want, but it's kind of important when I go through and I don't have to think about what each one of these are. And for my arched slide block, I can right-click, go to Edit Joint Limits. I'm going to go to Minimum and Maximum. And, you know, for minimum in this case, let's see what happens when I go 20. It goes right along there. So I'm going positive in that direction. So I'm going to go 90 and see how far outside it goes. I think I went 100 last time, so I'm going to go 100. I'll keep it about there. The other, you know, maximum down here, I'm going to try, let's say, like negative 10. Let's see how far that goes out. It's keeping them both the same, it seems like, for this one. So like if I go to animate here, it's not moving anywhere. So I definitely want this to slide. Let's see if we can go in here and change something. I can go negative 100. That would take it way too far off. I'm going to keep it at negative 10. Let's try the maximum here and see if it'll let us go 100. Let's see what happens. There we go. You just have to just offset them. I was just doing the minimum and a maximum the same. Now for minimum right here, I might want to try, like, let's say negative 20. We'll try this again, negative 30. Kind of goes off the grid a little bit. Remember, your top view can help you with this. There's a reason we talk about two-dimensional views. This can help you. We're going to go ahead and say OK. Now we've placed those. It's kind of cool to be able to come over here too, you know, right-click and go to Animate Joint, and you can see it move. Everything else turns that way. I can escape twice on my keyboard, come down to this one right here. I'm going to right-click. I'm just going to go to Animate Joint and watch it move. You can get an idea of that motion and that movement. Now, one of the things about tolerancing is we want to make sure that there is a gap in here. I can see air between each side. I can see that little white gap area in there. And our background's white, so we can see that. I want to see this arch in here. We don't want this to wear out. We've heard about parts wearing out before. We don't want that to happen. So you can see our little slider joint constraints that are left in here. We have turned off our joints. Now if I turn on every one of these joints up here by clicking on this little eyeball, I can see all this. And sometimes this is a little too much, a little too busy. I can get rid of that. and you can now see that. So this has been a video for how to go about using a slider constraint to constrain your Trammel slide pieces for your Trammel toy project in Fusion 360.